Let's listen and let's talk with episode number 168, One Direction Mom, Liam Payne. Now, this is the podcast, Wide Open Spaces with Elise and the Fiery Redhead. Go to wideopenspaceswithelise.com. Elise is spelled I-L-I-S-E. You can follow me on all the social media networks. And don't forget to hit that love button and follow me and maybe leave some comments. Now let's pop in our earbuds and let's evolve together. As a reminder, it's the month of October, and October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I am on a committee called Not My Daughter, Find a Cure Now, where every year we raise lots of money so that none of our daughters or sons will ever have to be affected by breast cancer in the future. Please go to their website, notmydaughter.com.org. I think it is actually notmydaughter.org. And if you'd like to leave a donation, that would be much appreciated. Now, let me shout out, like I do every beginning of each podcast each week, to people who are listening to me all over the world. Now, you may seem like, I don't want to hear about this, but guess what? The people who live in those places do, and they like to be acknowledged. And I like to acknowledge it because when I see it on my analytics, it makes me happy. It makes me smile to know that thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away, someone is listening to this voice and my knowledge and my experience. So I thank you, and I give you much, much appreciated feelings that come deep within my heart. So let me shout out to India, Nigeria, Ukraine, the Netherlands, and I am going to shout out to South Africa, and I'm going to add Zambia in there. I just was in South Africa. You can listen to episode number 167 about the experiment of South Africa and what that all entailed. But I handed out my card when I was in South Africa to some of the people that I met along the way. And I've been having more downloads come from South Africa. So if any of you are someone that I met along the way, I'm shouting out to you and I'm giving you a wave, and much appreciated for you taking a leap by listening to this podcast. Don't forget to go to my website. I also have a blog. If you don't have time to listen to the podcast, there is a blog that will be very similar to what this podcast is. And don't forget to check out my newly published book, Wanderlust Within, A Journey to Self-Discovery by me, Elise Litwin. Take it on all those journeys with you. Take an internal journey of wanderlust and spread that wanderlust out into the world. Well, it was a sad week last week when the world heard about the death of singer, songwriter, One Direction band member, Liam Payne. And you might be wondering, why is she talking about this on her podcast? Well, then maybe you haven't been listening to all the details that have been coming out following his untimely death. And as a therapist in the mental health field, it just screams at me. And I felt it was important because I realized the ripple effects that I began to see after the passing of Liam Payne. And I heard the term One Direction Mom. And I thought, oh, that's cute. And then I realized I'm a One Direction mom. I was the mom who took my kid to see One Direction. We actually saw them in Miami, and it was their very, very last United States concert ever as the group One Direction. And my one daughter I took, she was young, and I was there with a friend, and I've been to many concerts. And there was just something, I don't know, so different that kind of reminded me of my childhood and NSYNC and 98 Degrees and the Backstreet Boys. We had those boy bands, and the fact that my daughter now had this boy band, like it kind of was a retro feeling. And their music, well, it stands the test of time. It's fantastic. The way the band was formed and put together by Simon Cowell, it all has this a story of these young men who were just handpicked and put together, but yet created something as the Beatles were in a different time period. And so I'm a One Direction mom. And when I heard, I was sitting on my phone and I found out pretty early, one of the news medias that I happened to be on my phone and it popped out up, I guess, as soon as it was verified. And I read it and I went, wait, what? It didn't process at first, honestly, that Liam Payne from One Direction had passed away. So, of course, your fingers start doing the walking and trying to figure out. And in the beginning, there really wasn't a lot of information at all. We just knew he was in Argentina with his girlfriend, Kate. And he was there to, I believe, see Niall, I could be wrong on that, sing, but one of the band members sing and meet up with him. And of course, there's all kinds of stories behind that, whether they're rumors or true, that they hadn't seen each other and talked in a long time, and he was there for that. And the first thing you start to see is there was this, I guess, some of this last video of him outside his hotel, greeting fans, signing autographs, hugging fans. There was this one fan who was the true meaning of a fan, who actually had the same tattoos that Liam had on his forearm, on his arm. And it was just nice to see, kind of as a voyeur, watching this video that this person took of him just being kind and compassionate and humble with his fans. And then you hear about all these things that happened in his hotel, in the lobby before he passed. All these rumors, all these things that go on. And in your gut, you kind of have a feeling of what might have happened. The first thing when I started to watch TikToks, and I was invested in this not only because I'm a therapist and something like this always kind of hits home when you work in the mental health field, but because I was a One Direction mom and seeing and knowing how One Direction was such a pivotal part of some of these young girls' lives. They lived their lives, their childhood, through these songs of One Direction. And watching as the grief starts to spread across the world, memorials across the world for this artist, and starting to hear about how he was bullied, cyber bullied. Now, if you're not familiar with it and you're kind of like, crossing your, arms and going, what is she talking about? Yeah, I thought that too. What do you mean that Liam Payne from One Direction was being cyber bullied? Well, what I could find, and I'm sure there's a lot more, and the younger people are more plugged into it than I am. And I really didn't want to ask my kids about it because they get annoyed when I do that. So I just wanted to do my own research. And I guess he was at, I believe, Zayn's concert, and he was up in the boxes that are up high, and there were fans below, and I guess he started like getting the attention on himself a little bit from the crowd, and whoever videoed it and posted it, he just started getting all of this hate. And you go on and you can see some of the hate, and it doesn't matter who you are, what your status is, whether you live a grand or simple life. Bullying hurts all the same. And you hear about all these famous people who now get bullied. I mean, you used to hear years ago, before the internet, you'd have like stalkers or people who would write letters, obsessive letters to their celebrity that they would be obsessed with. And now with the internet, it's just so easy. And people don't think about the things they say, how they can hurt people. And from the reports, this became a big weight on his shoulders. True or not, rumors, that's all we can go by at this point until we hear more, I guess, from his girlfriend who was with him in Argentina for some time but had left. I can only imagine how she feels that she wasn't there, and all the people in his life. Now, I'll go into the circumstances just a little bit because most of you might know that he apparently was out of control. He was in the lobby. He passed out in the lobby. They brought him upstairs to his hotel room. He was on the third floor. He smashed up the TV and really damaged things in his hotel room. And the next thing they know, he's off his balcony and he passes away. Well, if you're not aware, Liam Payne suffered from mania, ADHD, and anxiety. Now, autopsy results have said that there were all kinds of chemicals in his system. And of course, my radar goes up. Someone who worked in the chemical dependency field with dual diagnosis, meaning you have a mental health diagnosis and you have an addiction diagnosis, which is dual diagnosis. And obviously, this is the case with Liam Payne. A lot of individuals who are suffering extreme mania, anxiety, you have the ADHD, which is a hyperactivity disorder. A lot of people self-medicate, trying to calm down, trying to come down from this mania, this feeling of being out of control. And I can only make a conjecture at this point, but that's probably what part of his using substances was about. And sometimes there can be a reaction. A psychosis can happen where they're just not in touch with reality. Rumors are that he had kept saying he wanted to go in the pool, and the hotel said the pool was closed. According to the autopsy, it wasn't an accidental fall based on the damage. It was an intentional fall. They're saying, quote unquote, that maybe he was trying to jump off to get in the pool. Will we ever know? No. The reality is that it's tragic that a person with such talent, such a way of touching people with their music, being human, being kind, all the unwritten music and lyrics that people will never experience, had mental illness. It doesn't matter how much money you have or how much fame you have. Mental illness is something that doesn't pick and choose people. It can happen to anybody at any socioeconomic level. Nobody is immune from it. And it's hard to cope with having a mental health diagnosis, especially when all of a sudden it begins to rear its ugly head. You're starting to feel out of control. You're starting to do manic behaviors, things that you never did before, and you're not really quite realizing it until things start to get out of control. Maybe family or friends start bringing it to your attention. And it's hard to wrestle in your brain with, well, I've been fine my whole life. Why now? Mental health does not pick and choose the disorders, the diseases. It's a chemical imbalance that begins to happen in the brain. Now, yes, most people are born with ADHD. Most people are not born with anxiety. Anxiety begins as we begin to grow and we deal with the stressors of life. For me personally, I think I've had anxiety my whole life. I didn't realize it until I had kind of an overt episode of anxiety and finally, went on something to help me and realized that I probably was like this my whole life because being on a low dose of something has taught me how I feel more even and calm, and the little things that used to kind of get me frazzled don't get me frazzled anymore. And we don't always realize when we're having something that maybe we've had our whole life or it's just started to come up to the surface. Now, I don't know about Liam Payne's situation when he was diagnosed with mania and ADHD and anxiety, but I do know that he had a mental health disorder. And many of you know people out there who suffer from these same types of mental health issues and how they've either coped or not coped or are in the midst of it or it's just been diagnosed with it. And it really is a hard pill to swallow. And especially imagine here's this guy at a very young age who really lost a lot of his childhood to being in this famous boy band by choice, of course, not knowing. No one ever knows when you get into show business how it really is going to affect or taint or morph your life into something that you never expected. And they were everything, One Direction. They were everything. Their music was so pure and honest that a mom loved their young girls listening to it. Why did I take my young girl to a concert of 5 boys, which they were men by then? Because of the message. There was nothing crude or vulgar in it, and it was just, I guess they were just simplistically pure in a way. And that creates the One Direction mom, which I didn't even know was a title. And I'm proud to say it, that I have that title. I started to listen to their music again this week, and it kind of brought back a lot of memories and made me smile, but then made me so sad at the same time because of what just happened to Liam, and thinking about all of the guys in One Direction who have gone all their own directions in their careers, some more famous than others, like Harry Styles, but they all have their own path. And where are they mentally and emotionally, and how this will affect them? They will never be One Direction again. And that's sad. And how do you tell that daughter of yours or son of yours that you took to see One Direction when they were young, and they're now adults, because mine's an adult? It kind of pulls part of their childhood away from them. You'll see all these young girls crying on TikTok, and I start to get tears in my eyes because I remember the innocence of my daughter listening to this music and just the pure joy that it gave, and to know that one of the members struggled so much and she sees that as an adult now. Well, it's a dose of reality. And mental health during COVID, it was such a beautiful thing, I have to say, because people started to see and put a magnifying glass on mental health. Because, again, mostly of celebrities who were stuck at home like all of us, without their running around and doing all the things they were doing and sitting with themselves a lot. And they began to feel that anxiety, like I told you I did. All of a sudden, I had this acute experience with anxiety. And because they were slowing down and weren't keeping themselves constantly going, they were starting to feel this. Many became depressed. Many felt isolated and lonely and in deep despair. And they began to go to social media and talk about it. And there was this highlight on it. And I always hoped, and you'll hear me say throughout my podcast when I talk about COVID, that there were some things that really positive came out of such a horrible, devastating time in the world's history. And this was one of them, the highlight of mental health. And that I hoped that the positive things wouldn't fall back to the side, but they are. The focus on mental health is slipping away again. And you can see it when you see the reaction of all these people to Liam Payne's death. But the signs were there. They were there. And I don't want you to lose sight when you see the signs in people that you love: deep depression, sleeping, not getting out of bed, not coming to functions, arriving to work late, calling in sick all the time, not answering phone calls, not answering text messages. Their environment is disorganized and dirty. If you start to see this, someone is in a deep depression. Don't ignore the signs, but try to look for the signs. If you know someone, they already have a diagnosis, you start to see those beginning signs, reach out to them, help them. Sometimes when you have a mental health diagnosis, you don't see as you begin to slip a little bit. It's the people around you that see it. And if you just go, that's them, and let it brush off, well, the domino effect can begin. Before you know it, they're in deep despair. The same goes with mania. Look how out of control with his mania and adding self-medication, trying to help bring himself down. The combination turned him into an uncontrollable, psychotic type of rage. It's important, if you are somebody who is on the outside and you know somebody who has extreme anxiety, who has a social disorder, social anxiety, you start to see them pulling away, not wanting to be with you. Say something. Don't keep it quiet. Sometimes the person isn't even realizing that they're beginning to slip. It's an important thing to acknowledge that medication can do wonders for mental health disorders. But sometimes medications tap out, meaning they don't work as well as they used to in your body. Sometimes the dosage you're on isn't quite getting you to that even keel level where you feel like you can function properly in society. Sometimes you skip your medicines. You don't take them regularly. These are all things that, if you are diagnosed with a mental health disorder, are reasons why you may start to decompensate. A lot of times when I worked in the hospital, a big portion of our patients that came in were because they were decompensating. And it was because they needed a medication change or an adjustment. And medicine is not magic. And sometimes it just stops working. Or your mental health issues morph into something a little bit different, and different medications are required. Now, I know a lot of you out there don't believe in medicating yourself, and I don't condemn you. You want to use healthy forms, whatever it is, as long as you're being able to function in society. I don't want to see anybody fall and decompensate into a point of despair and having their lives be out of control. So you, as the person with the diagnosis, must be true to yourself. And you also must listen when you are that support system and you see changes in this person that you know has some issues dealing with mental health. It's a tricky diagnosis. There's so many subsets of having mental health disorders, and I only named the most common ones, but there are many. Obsessive compulsive disorder, there's so many out there, and different people can suffer from different degrees of these types of mental health illnesses. And nothing is more sad than when someone loses their life to a mental health issue. And hearing the stories behind, and there's stories right now, let's be clear, behind this One Direction star's death, there is one common component: mental health. and addictions, and how they can make your life spiral. No matter how much money, how much fame, how many things you have in your life, you can still spiral. And how people being cruel and bullying, well, that can affect any of us. If you've ever been bullied, I watched one of my daughters get terribly bullied. And it's not so easy to, they'll tell you to ignore, to turn it off, move away from that person, don't respond to that person. Not so easy when you're in it. I used to think about that when I would hear about bullying and, you know, if I was a parent and my child was getting bullied, I'd just pull them out of school. Well, guess what? They can still get to them through social media. And bullies are very keen and they can very smart and they go through other people and other channels to get to you. And so think before you start to criticize somebody on social media, whether it's a friend, whether it's a stranger, whether it's someone who is a celebrity. Everyone has feelings. Some people are more fragile than others, but no matter how strong you are, bullying still hurts. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Go to any of your feeds on social media. When someone says or does something that's a little controversial, look at the comments. It's shocking. It's disgusting. How people are so easy to call other people names. What do they get out of it? They're just hurting people. And for someone like Liam Payne, was this the cause of his death? Probably not. Did it add to his mental health issues? I could say probably 1000%. It was part of his mental health issues. So think before you speak. Don't be so cruel. Not everybody is perfect and people make mistakes. And we can highlight and talk about those mistakes in a healthy, positive way. You know, this podcast evolved out of a time where we were all stuck at home, where mental health was being focused on. And that slipped away. And I'm so glad that I'm still doing this podcast well into season 5, because it's needed. There are many, many podcasts out there that focus on mental health. Pick any of them. If this one doesn't work for you, there's other ones where they have a lot of guests and they bring in, I focus more from me sitting as the therapist and my audience being my clients, but also connecting with you because I'm human and I have my own issues and my own problems. And so we can learn and we can grow and we can evolve together. I want to leave you before we go with one of the songs from One Direction, the lyrics. I'm well known for taking away the music, which I couldn't use anyways because I don't have the rights to it. But taking away the music and just reading the lyrics as if they're almost a poem. And I think this particular song really says it all when it comes to the One Direction star and highlighting, I guess, the loss. Such a great loss to the world. It's really sad. And I guess this is the time when, you know, you'll hear mental health professionals just feeling at a loss and wanting to cry. And that One Direction mom in me wants to cry too. And I know there's a lot of you out there who are listening to me now who are a One Direction parent who took your young child. Mine, we went, she bought her shirt, put it on. She had on her face a number 1 and a D. She wrote on her face, and I don't know, I looked back on the pictures and just looked at the enjoyment and this cute little face before she got her braces and everything, and just the innocence of it and how much Liam Payne and all of One Direction gave to us, a gift. And I guess the gift that we can give to Liam Payne is to be more aware, to be more cognizant, to be more kind when it comes to people who are struggling in life. That band gave us all gifts, and I guess the gift we can give back after this young gentleman has lost his life at age 31 is to be more kind, to understand mental health, to assist those in your life that may be struggling, or to acknowledge yourself that you're struggling. There are many support groups out there. Please reach out to them. If you are feeling suicidal, that you're going to harm yourself or harm others, dial 988, suicide hotline. Even if you don't feel suicidal, but you feel out of control, dial it. There will be somebody there who can talk to you, who will be knowledgeable, who will be able to send you in the right direction to get you to feel happy, to feel in control, to feel even. Life is complicated, and the death of this star, well, just shows you that no one is immune from mental health issues. Let's spread the word. Let's be cognizant, and let's open our eyes, and let's be welcoming to those who do suffer from mental health issues. So let me leave you with this, the story of my life. Written in these walls are the stories that I can't explain. I leave my heart open, but it stays right here, empty for days. She told me in the morning she don't feel the same about us in her bones. It seems to me that when I die, these words will be written on my stone. And I'll be gone, gone tonight. The ground beneath my feet is open wide. The way that I've been holding on too tight, with nothing in between. The story of my life, I take her home. I drive all night to keep her warm, and time is frozen. The story of my life. I give her hope, I spend her love until she's broke inside. The story of my life. Written on these walls are the colors that I can't change. Leave my heart open, but it stays right here in its cage. I know that in the morning I'll see us in the light up on the hill. Although I am broken, my heart is untamed still. And I'll be gone, gone tonight. The fire beneath my feet is burning bright. The way that I've been holding on too tight, with nothing in between. The story of my life, I'll take her home. I'll drive all night to keep her warm. And time is frozen, the story of my life. I give her hope. I spend her love until she's broke inside. The story of my life. This podcast, well, those words can be for anybody who's struggling. You can take it as a romance. You can take it as your heart and how it's been broken and broken and broken. It's the story of your life. And this song can be so many things to so many people. But yet, with the passing of Liam Payne, well, it represents the story of his life. And when they wrote this song and sang this song, never in a million years did I think, or they think, that this song would be so apropos to what has just happened to the One Direction star. So to all those One Direction moms out there, have a little talk with your daughters or your sons. There's a little part of their heart that was broken last week. And they may need their One Direction mom to bring them back to the time they went to that concert or listened to the music and just to reminisce a little bit. Remember when you were a child, how those moments and those things were just so special, and you carry them with them. Your whole life, they stay with you. Well, that's what One Direction is to a lot of these young children who were in that prime when the group was so popular. So out there, One Direction moms or One Direction dads, and reach out to that little person that still lives inside your child. And if it's just you, then sit there and maybe listen to some One Direction music and remember and go like I did and look back at the photos and find some happiness in such a sad time. And always remember that mental health can be quite tragic. But mental health can also be positive if we learn how to treat, nurture, and take care of ourselves. Thank you for listening to me today at Wide Open Spaces with Elise for episode number 168. Looking forward to seeing you next week. And remember, positive thoughts always create positive energy. Go out and explore all those wonderful wide open spaces in your world. And maybe do something today to help support your mental health, pamper and nurture yourself a little bit. And until next time, my friends, ciao.